Elemento a los habitantes de Ciudad Elemento. Los de aire suelen tener la cabeza en las nubes.
¡Oh, mi chaqueta nueva!
Los de tierra siempre están sembrados.
Esto no es lo que parece.
Solo nos estamos cosechando.
I really love the scenes where you introduce real physics and chemistry examples of how water and fire react. I was wondering, how did you create the rules of this world? Because I assume that you maybe wanted to be as real as possible to how it happens, but it's still a movie, and you have to take some licenses.
Yes.
So how did you?
So those two questions. The first one, in terms of how we were getting to those effects to match with the characters, that was math at first. And so I was just doing a lot of research on YouTube and science books and videos and talking to professors about like, what can water do? What can fire do? What can fire and water do together? What can air do to water, and get what different gases? And so you're just listing that out. Then when we were with the story teams, I had this list with us all the time as they were coming up with story ideas. And so it would just be like, Wade drinks something and he's talking to Ember. Oh, when he drinks something, what, could it give him a headache? Oh, he has a whirlpool in his head. And so like, oh, that whirlpool in the water. Okay, that science idea comes into there and it matches. And so there's that. There was a lot of that work for your first question. The second question became about trying to definitely trying to set up in the real world of logic. The physics of everything we tried to set up as best as we can. But like you said, there's also movie logic. But then movie logic was also really tough for us. And then we went for, this is gonna sound so weird, emotional logic. Okay. And so trying to make the effect feel emotionally real. Okay. So meaning when they start to get close to each other, the things that are going on, even though that might not exactly be science right, does it feel right, is what we started to do. And so that was the path there. Look, there's so many things in the movie where Ember's touching something that should be on fire. Not, we didn't catch everything, but we were trying our best to try to find that sort of marriage.
Yeah, don't constrain the plot and the characters.
Yeah, our question ultimately came to like watching the movie and then someone going like, she's touching that, and I'm like, okay, who else, did that pull you out of the movie? Yeah. And then one person would go, that pulled me out, and then everyone like, no, and they're like, then we're keeping it. Then there was another time if something happens and like, who felt that? And everyone's hands raised, you're like, let's spend the money and fix that. And so it just became a game.
Yep. That's a really cool process. Yeah. I'm really interested when Ember's parents arrive at Elemental City and we see the murals of the different waves of immigration. Why did you want to push that maybe hostility to fire people out the city didn't adapt at all, and they created like this ghetto, and if that was an experience that your parents had when they arrived?
Yeah, it was an experience that connected to my parents. My parents didn't come together, they came split, but they both had different stories. The other thing too was that we talked to our crew, and there were about 100 people at Pixar that we got to talk to that all shared different experiences. There's like the name change when they give me your names and they change it. That was from a story artist from France, Bolem, who told us his version of that, and then that got into the movie. That didn't happen exactly like my parents, but it was stories from a lot of different people that started to get in there. Now, why fire? To your first question, what was interesting when I was doing homework on just elements and then the classic elements, fire was the change element. Fire changes solids to liquids, fire changes liquid to gas. The other elements didn't do that. And so there was something about like, oh, could fire have another effect to this world? And so that's how it started. Obviously, I had other versions of the movie where fire it changed the entire city, but then we started going into this more internal struggle about love that shifted that, but it was primarily because of that. It was a change agent.
Interesting. I also want to know your opinion about, there's this thing that often people say about Pixar, that there's a Pixar formula. That if something has feelings, I want to know
the cars have
what's your opinion about it, the comparisons between not only Pixar past, but for example, Zootopia from Disney.
Sure, yeah.
How do you feel about this?
Yeah, the what if a thing had a feeling is, I saw it all over the internet, and I don't have any, animation is such a playful place that you're always trying to find a metaphor to something that you're experiencing in your life. And but that's not to say like when I started this, I wasn't going like, what if this light had a feeling? You know, it wasn't that. It was just like, oh man, my parents worked so hard. That's what started this. And then in terms of the world of being compared to other Pixar films, I've been there for 23 years. You know, working on all these movies since Nemo, and all you're doing every single time you get into a project, it's how do you make this project as best as it can be, you know? And so it's almost like a child where you're like, how do I teach this child what it needs to grow, you know? And each child is very different. And when a child is compared to another child, you know, it's people do it, and that's just life. But more than anything, you're still just focusing on the child to see like, oh, how do we still prop you up, and how do we still make you strong, and, you know, live out in the world on your own, you know?
I mean, I would say the common denominator is that all of our films do come from personal places from our directors. You know, we're not taking outside sources, so that's probably the through line thread, as I would say, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So since your studio is very collaborative and you go to the screenings of the projects, since animation is now getting, let's just say, tougher, there's a lot of movies that are making huge from other studios. So I want to know, how does the near future of Pixar look like? I know we have Elio next year, we have Win or Lose at Disney Plus, Toy Story 5, Inside Out 2.
Yeah.
How would you describe Pixar's future?
Well, I mean,
it's
going to change, I think. How remains to be seen. But the intention right now is for us to continue to have big theatrical experiences, I guess aside from the two streaming projects. But, you know, we make the movies for the big screen. You know, it's a changing business, and I don't know, we'll see what happens. But, you know, again, we want to entertain our audiences. And I don't know, anything to add to that, Pete?
Nope.
Okay, so thank you so much for this interview. Congratulations again.
Thank
I can't
you.
wait to see the movie again.
Oh,
Thank you very much.
¡Prueba esto!
Papá, eso quema mucho.
¡Me gusta que queme!
¿Lo ves? ¡Le encanta!